How are cows raised who are raised to produce milk?
In the state of California, where I live, there was a Happy Cows campaign from the California Milk Board. They ran ads. They showed images of cows in lush green fields with phrases like, "so much grass, so little time." And happy milk comes from happy cows. Happy cows come from California. It was a lovely ad campaign. The only trouble was that the images of the cows on grass were actually filmed in New Zealand. The state of California, most of the dairy operations are concentrated in the Central Valley of California, which is fairly barren. And the animals live on concrete or barren dirt, and they never see a blade of grass in their entire lives. They're cooped up in very small quarters. One of the most painful things to me about the milk industry is that baby calves are ripped away from their mothers at 1 day old or less. So the moms never get to nurse their babies, and they cry and cry for their babies. And what mother wouldn't, to have their baby ripped away so early? And then their milk is taken for humans, and they are kept constantly lactating, so that often with drugs and violations of their natural instincts as well as breeding methods, they keep them in that state. And so their udders are huge and swollen and often become infected. And these poor cows are pretty miserable. They're four-legged milk pumps, essentially, or that's how they're treated. But of course, they're mammals, and they love their young just like any mom does. And they deserve to have their babies with them, I think. But humans want all the milk for themselves. So, you know, it's a sad system, and it's also creating a product, milk, that doesn't really do a body good. It's great for baby cows. In fact, it's nature's most perfect food for baby cows, but not for humans. We're the only species that drinks the milk of another species, and we're the only species that drinks any milk after infancy. And yes, milk is packed with certain nutrients. It's got everything that you need. It's really baby cow growth fluid, and it's designed to help an animal to double its birth weight in 47 days. And that animal also happens to have, I believe, 4 stomachs. So that's, if you want to double your birth weight in 47 days, then drink lots of milk. But the reality is that it's also packed with hormones. Which is understandable since it's coming from an animal that is often pumped full of hormones, but that's also a lactating mammal. And those hormones can throw off our hormonal balance and are therefore linked to higher rates of cancer.
Is it okay to eat animals if they're organic, grass-fed, or free-range?
I have a lot of respect for every human being's need to clarify for themselves what their own values are, what their own ethics and integrity is, what their health needs are. You are the only expert on you on the entire planet. Just because a lot of studies have shown that something is good for most people most of the time doesn't mean it's okay for you. And you have to decide what are your ethics and your values and what's in alignment with them. Many people decide to go 100% vegan because of ethical reasons or for health reasons or for environmental reasons. I respect that, absolutely. That can be a wonderful choice for a lot of people. Some people choose to include a small amount of pasture-raised animal products in their diet for various reasons, and in some cases I can think that makes sense for them too. At the end of the day, you have to decide what makes sense for you, but here's what we know. The more animal products we eat, statistically, the more likely we are to suffer and die from diseases like heart disease and cancer and type 2 diabetes and dementia. The more we're going to have an ecological footprint that's larger, and it's going to lead to faster climate change, less topsoil and less water for future generations. And the more animals are going to die for human consumption. So whether you choose to go to 0 or 5% or 10% or whatever, know that pasture-raised is definitely more humane and more sustainable and more healthy than industrialized meat. And know that there's an impact to every choice we make. And you get to decide what kind of impact you want to make that's in keeping with your values. And I want to help you to make that a conscious one.
What made you write your last book?
I wrote 31 Day Food Revolution because I want to put the power in your hands where it belongs to create change, to create health, and to participate in building a healthier world. Part 1 and 2 focus on detoxifying and nourishing our bodies. Part 3 focuses on how we can gather our tribe and our community and build healthy social relationships that are rooted in healthy food. And then Part 4 is transform, and that's where we look at how we can be part of the revolution, how we can change the world. I say we need to put our own oxygen mask on first before helping others, and then we need to save the freaking plane because we got some big problems on the planet, and toxic food is fueling a lot of them. And the spoiler alert is that it is a heck of a lot easier to change the world than you probably ever imagined. The core principles of the Food Revolution diet plan are to eat less sugar and processed junk, eat less animal products, particularly if they come from factory farms, eat more whole plant foods, and source consciously. Things like organic, fair trade, local, non-GMO, these things matter. And I show how and why. And ultimately, it's all about helping you start wherever you are and move towards wherever you want to be, so you can get the results you want for your health and for your life.
What impact does eating animal products have on the soil?
Topsoil is life. It's the source of all of our food. It's precious, it's sacred, it's beautiful, and it is threatened. United Nations researchers estimate that by the year 2050, we may have half the arable farmland that we did in 1960, and yet we'll have a lot more people to feed. So population goes up, topsoil goes down. That's not a pretty picture. And we need topsoil, but we are eroding it, and livestock production is at the center of that because unsustainable farming practices are fueling topsoil erosion, and often they are fueled by the need to produce as much yield as possible in the shortest possible amount of time. Guess why we need such a big yield? Because we're feeding 12 pounds of grain or soy for every pound of feedlot beef we produce. We're feeding 4 or 5 pounds for every pound of chicken we produce. And all of that waste is putting enormous pressure on our cropland. So we're pumping it full of pesticides and artificial fertilizers and fungicides, all of which are eroding the health and vitality of the soil so that we can produce maximal yield in the shortest possible amount of time. It's dangerous and it's terrifying when you think about the implications. That's why I think we need to move towards more organic, more sustainable food production methods, and we can afford to do that when we stop wasting most of our grain and soy by cycling it through livestock.
What impact does eating animal products have on the amount of pesticides sprayed?
Over half of our agricultural land in North America is being used in livestock production. And a lot of that is cropland that's growing grain or soy to feed livestock. Guess what? A lot of that grain or soy is genetically engineered and is being sprayed with pesticides as well as herbicides. So if you want to spare our land and our water and our air from contamination with herbicides, with pesticides, with fungicides, then one of the top things you can do is to eat less meat.